Thanks for listening to Controlling Our Narrative. I'm Brooke Thomas. Nyanza Shaw is an entertainment attorney and owner of Shaw Esquire. She is joining us today from Los Angeles, along with Tina Farris, who is the owner and founder of Tina Farris Tours. She's also a producer and tour manager. And of course, as always, co-EP OJ Smith will break down the Out of Africa segment later on in the show. And he, if we're lucky, pops in on the rest of the conversation from time to time as well.
It happens.
Woo, OJ.
That's funny. That's funny.
All right, I want to start with a report out of Inside Higher Ed. This past week, 14 college professors from around the U.S. were on a video call with Vice President Mike Pence and Education Secretary, Betsy DeVos. The topic of discussion was, of course, the new coronavirus, among other things. The university leaders wanted to know about liability protection. And that's a hot topic all over. But essentially, they were telling Pence that being shielded from lawsuits if students get sick is something that would make them likelier to physically reopen their campuses. Nyanza, I'm curious, what do you think? Because reopening universities would obviously play a huge role in re-energizing our economy. Also, companies, they want in on this conversation as well. Senator Mitch McConnell has made it clear he wants future coronavirus relief packages to include protections for companies, corporations. Is this necessary?
I think it is necessary, but to your point, whether it's a school, a business, and other organizations that are trying to figure out this phasing of reopening, it just kind of bothers me that the focus is on the liability issue rather than the safety issue, right? So their first concern should be, we can reopen if we know the students are safe. It shouldn't be like, hey, we'll reopen
if y'all don't sue us.
If y'all don't sue us.
That kind of implies
exactly.
You are not safe, right?
So I think it's hard to weigh though, right? Because nobody wants to get sued. We live in a very litigious country, and that is part of it. But I think if you lead with controlling and containing the safety of your employees or your students or et cetera, then you're less likely to be liable for something.
Right. I feel like it's hard to be able to do that. For example, I went cherry picking. I wanted to see who was out there a couple of weeks ago. I'm from Northern California, so wasn't a lot of people out there. Not a lot of people do that in the first place, because I'm a weirdo, like cherry pick. So, so they had a waiver, and I was like, "Oh, good! I do live. Let me see what you did. Let me take a picture of this waiver and see how you get out of this, because you want to. You're trying to manage both. I want you to be comfortable coming out again, and I'm measuring that to how much you still want to go out and have fun and live in the world. So I think there's going to have to be some liability on both sides because there's no vaccine, right? So I can't really protect you. You know what I mean? And I also can't afford for you to come out when you know there's a vaccine running around. I mean, when you know that there is a pandemic, just because you want to have fun, and then on the back end you get to sue me.
So can we talk about that? Oh, I'm sorry.
Another example I had was like in Japan, right? Car accidents. Both people are liable for the car accident. You can't sue the other person. You guys both just like, well, you know what it is when you get on the road. Somebody might hit you.
Well, that's what I was going to say with universities. Like if you go cherry picking or if you set up an event that's an experiential type of event, that's more of a controlled environment, right? With universities, there's so many staff, so many professors, so many students. Students have other jobs. There's these vast campuses.
Right.
So it's not like you can say, hey, even the video that I'm sure you guys saw, like the little kids in Japan are trying to go into school and getting sprayed down. Then they're all in one building, right? But on a campus, you're not.
Right. Like
It's
I
too
know
open.
you got sprayed down.
Yeah, it's too open. There's too many other factors going into how you keep people safe, whether you sign a waiver or not, versus it being some sort of controlled, contained environment.
There's also the difference between like people who want to do something and people who have to do something. Like
absolutely,
there's a difference between us as consumers when it comes to, hey, if you don't come back, if you choose to completely mitigate risk, you don't get a degree. or if you choose to completely mitigate risk, you don't get a paycheck. So people who have to be there to work is compared to people who want to, people who are consumers compared to. So I am worried about that. If you say we're going to bring people back to work very early, they can't sue us.
And a lot of people are scared to go back to work,
Yeah.
right? You know, right now we're having these conversations where, yes, we are in these phases of reopening and there's things that are going to open, but who's going to those things? I'm not going tomorrow. So you can open 4-5 stores. I'm not going tomorrow. Like, I'm not going to be at the mall tomorrow, even though you might be able to open the mall in July or whenever they're going to open them. So I do think that that obviously is a harder issue. And I know the other thing that I've just heard from friends of mine who have kids in college is, I'm not paying for my kid to go to school to do virtual learning. If my kid is at Harvard, if my kid is at Morehouse, if my kid is at a certain university, that part of the experience is relative to the experience, then why am I paying them so much money and they're in my extra bedroom still studying? You know, so I do think that it is a choice, but I also think that that's going to be another financial impact issue with some of these universities in terms of getting classes back going.
Sure.
They also want, stretching that, even thinking about it that way, they want protections as part of the conversation, the larger conversation, from people seeking refunds. People, you know, people getting a class action lawsuit together to get tuition refunds because this is a different experience than what you charged us for last semester.
Right.
Absolutely. I think that's going to be a bigger, not a bigger issue, but a very large issue that starts to come up again, specifically in certain types of schools that are known for their experience. You know, so if you're just going to a general community college or et cetera, but it's like, I'm paying $60,000 for my kid to be at USC and they can't be at USC. Why am I sending you that money?
But also,
paid extra to get them there.
I think though you're paying $60,000 for the name USC on your list.
Okay, that might not have been the best example, but
no,
you're
but
going to Harvard
it
or
is a
Howard
part
or
of
like
it.
Morehouse. One of my friend's son is at Morehouse, and she's like, he's at Morehouse for the Morehouse experience, not for him to be studying in LA.
Let's talk about
think
math.
That's a hard. I mean, everybody's experiencing the pandemic. Can't give a refund in the pandemic. Everybody's got, you know what I mean? We're all adjusting. So comparing it to something that used to happen, like that's where we're missing the mark as far as.
Well, Tina, that's because we're rational people who think, hey, let go of the old norms. You can't keep holding on to the old norms, people.
That's what pivot means.
Let's go.
Yeah, it's a
lot of our old norms are perpetuating this issue right now. We need to let go of a lot of the old norms.
I remember
throw them away.
Exactly. I tell people, I remember when I used to see people off at the gate at the airport. And I don't
I remember that.
I don't think about it anymore.
I do. I think about it every time I go to the airport or I have to drop somebody off or something. I always wish I could go to the gate with them.
I mean, you might wish.
Right, I wish.
Or you get a ticket because I got to drop my grandmother off and I want to see my grandmother off. But even now when you send kids, they're like, okay, we'll take it from here.
Yeah, you can't go through security. You can't do anything, you know, so... It is part of that, and I think that will happen, and a lot of it will be, which, by the way, currently and pre-COVID, or as I like to call it, BC people sued on emotional issues. There's a lot of times that people are litigious because of an emotional issue, not a rational issue. So that's why I said, Tina, luckily we're rational, so we probably wouldn't do that, but there will be people that do that.
Right, and spending their money for no reason, because it's like, that's what force majeure means, I thought. Out of your hands.
That's a whole other discussion, Tina. That is definitely force majeure is a whole other discussion.
Right.
Let's talk about masks, because we do know, the science is there. Masks do help protect us from catching COVID-19. In some cities, they are mandatory. When you leave your home, if you're going to be around other people, you have to wear a mask. In stores, restaurants, they are becoming mandatory. They're mandatory everywhere in Los Angeles. Many people, though, do not want to wear masks. And here's the thing. I don't want to wear it. I don't want to not wear it. It's uncomfortable. It is uncomfortable.
It is.
You have to learn how to breathe through it. And it also keeps your butt at home, because you can't be wearing this, for a really long period of time. But it also keeps us safer. And so I'm weighing that, and it's an easy decision for me. I'm going to wear it. I want everybody around me to wear it. I don't want to be places where people are not wearing them. But a lot of people across this country don't want to wear them. They don't want to wear them. They are refusing to wear them. And in some instances, in a lot of instances, it's getting to the point of violence.
Mm-hmm.
And I think social media has also made it easier for us to witness a lot of the behaviors that have always existed.
Yeah.
But we are seeing a lot of these like violent outbursts. And it to me, it's irrational, because somebody is just trying to keep you safe.
Right.
But we're seeing, gun violence because of people not wanting to follow these regulations. And I also find it funny when people are like, it's my right. You are also inside a private business. This is
right. Yeah, you have zero right to
Right.
put any sort of public health safety at risk because you're being rebellious against safety. You're not being rebellious against a rule, because it's a regulation literally to protect you and protect everyone else. And you're literally rebelling against safety. You're not rebelling against anything else but that. And what's the point of that?
I had a friend today tell me, also people are just talking, right? Like there's so many people with so many opinions that they go against their own opinion they made earlier in the day. Like, wait, which side are you on? She was saying, well, now they're saying that masks, aren't effective, and that they hurt you actually more. And that, and this is science. I'm like, well, can those scientists find a vaccine? And then we won't be talking about whether we should wear a mask or not. Like, come on, you should put a mask on, if for nothing but to stop sneezing on me. It's not your, what I mean? Like, that's how we got into this in the first place. Everybody nasty.
I love, let me say this though. I love the graphic going around with the pee example. I think that's brilliant. It's two guys, and one says, if we were all walking around naked and somebody peed, they might get pee on you. If they're walking around naked and you have pants on and they pee, your pants might get wet. But if both of us have pants on, the likelihood of you getting pee on you is like reduced immensely because it's on them.
That's perfect. Yeah, that is.
And
it's
perfect. Like, that makes sense to me.
Right. And that's enough. Like, that's enough of a reason to me.
And again, it's not saying that all of your constitutional rights are being struck down because we're asking you to make it, to wear a mask. So let me say this. I did hear of one governor, mayor somewhere who, using the brilliance of reverse psychology, did not make the mask mandatory, but they made it, and they knew, it's like, we're going to have these people, they're going to rebel because certain people just rebel against everything and anything, right? They're like, oh, you tell me to do that? I don't want to do that. So he's like, we didn't tell them to do it. We requested, I forget exactly what language it was, but it was like, and they had a higher compliance level.
That's so interesting. We are
because
a
it's psychological
community, America.
Entitled.
And I wonder if this has anything.
Entitled.
We are, I wonder if this has anything to do with it, because the science behind masks is the biggest protection is you wearing it protects other people from you.
Right, but nobody believes they're sick, one. And then a lot of people don't even believe this is a thing. I talk to so many people like, this is a pandemic.
Take care of other people. People don't want to take care of other people. I don't. If the idea that's like me wearing a mask protects other people from me, they're like, oh, well, I'm not wearing it. I'm not sick. I'm fine.
Yeah.
Right.
Like you can't make decisions for other people, because that's essentially what it is, right?
But people are also
people
don't say it like that.
Why are you so disrespectful that you're going to go into a Trader Joe's or a store or someplace? As we know in LA, there's a sign up. You have to wear a mask in here. If you want to take your mask off outside, but like, why are you even just disrespecting the space that you are choosing to enter?
Right.
They bring their dogs, so it don't.
What?
Sorry.
These are those same people, Tina. The same people.
Giant dogs sniffing on the apples that I may buy.
Yeah, the people who it says, no dogs, or it says keep dogs on leash, and they just don't have their dogs on leash. All those people are the same people.
I will never get used to Dalmatians, full-grown Dalmatians inside Starbucks. I will.
Or dogs
and
at
again,
lunch. LA with the dogs at lunch. I
Yeah,
remember
man.
in
I
lunch
don't mind your
meeting,
dog
this girl
outside on
comes.
the patio with you, but why is
Outside.
your dog in the restaurant?
Right,
My
outside.
dog
In the restaurant, in a
Why is your
stroller
dog in the
next to my
restaurant?
table.
Right.
Right.
Or flying
Like
around.
it's your baby. No.
Dander.
It's but you know what, also something that worries me about all of this is that the workers, the employees, the pressure to enforce these rules are put on them, and this is who is
Yes.
becoming victim to the violence and the yelling and the screaming. I saw a woman cough in a restaurant employee's face, cough in his face,
That's
because
assault. As far
there
as
were
I'm concerned.
signs
Right.
on the booths, right? And there were some booths that were marked off, do not sit here, because they were trying to enforce social distancing.
Mm-hmm.
She moved the sign and sat there anyway. They told her she had to move to another table. She refused to, and then when she got kicked out, she coughed in the employee's face on her way out. Like, what is wrong with y'all?
Yeah, I think the people that are
Bruising for a bruiser.
disrespectful to basically the lowest living wage earners in our country is just ridiculous. You know,
That's
like
true.
those folks. I've said wear a mask and do all those things, but the few times that I go to the grocery store, I'm making sure I'm asking the cashier, like, how are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
You know, I can't imagine. I don't want to go to the grocery store, so I can't imagine working at the grocery store and
Man.
having to be there every
Killing
day.
me.
Yeah, and not making a lot of money, and
all
you
being
have
treated
people
like crap.
being rude at you. Yeah, because you didn't do this or do that or don't want to wear a mask, and it's like, are you
Right.
kidding me?
And people are getting angrier and angrier and just acting up.
Just acting
You
up.
know? But I
Yeah.
also see, like, I went to Ralph's a couple of weeks ago when they first did okay, it's top of the hour, please clean your stations. I was like, oh, that's
Yeah.
dope. Good job.
Right. I heard
Yesterday,
that.
I heard it again, and I didn't see the person in front of me clean the area. I was like, you want me to wait? Is this the top of the hour?
I have seen that, and I appreciate that. I was at Sprouts, and yeah, they're like, let's clean down the station, do whatever we're going to need to do. And again, they're putting a lot of time and effort into making sure all those crazy people that are like at the store thinking it's the end of the world and buying too much stuff. You still have a job. You still have to be there. And it's like,
I don't have a job. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
You should be happy.
I was at the grocery store a few days ago, and one of the employees was on his break, and he was behind me, and there are clearly marked signs on the floor, but he was like almost shoulder to shoulder to me. And it's like, I know he's tired, you know, so I'm just going to, you know, I'm gonna move and go stand out on because he has had a long day. I'm not adding to it, even with a, excuse me, can you stand on the line?
I'm telling people, I'm like, can you go over there?
Yeah. Back up.
What are you doing?
Yeah. Give me 6 feet, homie.
How many 6 feet?
Space, bro.
It ain't even that far away. After you look at it, I'm like, wait.
Also, why are you standing? Why do you want to stand next to me? You don't know me. You don't know, but I get it. They
culturally, like in China,
day.
that is the culture, which is why they started wearing masks before this. You know what I mean? It's just like, I get it. It was dense communities. Okay, fine. What can we do to keep everybody's germs off of me?
Right.
Which it just seems like something that we would all want. But okay, people are ridiculous. They're like, you need germs. Stop it. We are not talking about not letting your kid, like, we're not talking about not totally freaking out if your kid licks a little dirt on the playground. Okay, we are talking about a deadly virus. Okay, that nobody has any immunity to.
Carriers speak like that.
Okay. Stop it.
Carrier talk.
We are never going to be able to completely eliminate all bacteria. We are talking about a deadly virus. Yes, that's carrier talk. All right. So, staying on this same topic, as of today, all 50 states, I don't know if you all know this, but all 50 states as of today are partially reopened. States are, I guess you could say, balancing the need to keep people safe from something that has killed 100,000 people in our country. Jeez. And also getting people back to work, along with, I guess, to some, much needed sitting in movie theaters and restaurants. I don't understand that. But This also
Or
leaves it up
bowling
to
alleys
us.
if you're in
Bowling
Atlanta or
alleys.
Georgia.
Oh.
You need to open the bowling
What
alley.
are you doing? But this, you know, it leaves
And
it
they
up to
gonna
us.
touch the.
You're keeping small businesses employed and going. That's what the
Yeah.
attempt is. So I understand the initiative.
Yeah.
Because I too once I have no industry anymore. I'm
Right.
not touring probably for 2 years. So the
Jeez.
pivot is real. If you can't get an SBA loan, or even you can't, I got to figure out what I'm going to do next, right?
Right. So, but speaking of that, it leaves it up to us on the consumer side, at least, to personally weigh the risk. Because if in some areas everything is going, what do you do?
Right.
I think, Tina, what do you think? Because does it worry you? Do you feel like finally? Is it too soon? What are you thinking? LA made a big announcement.
It's definitely too soon. You know what I mean? I can understand that. But I think it's too soon for the next 2 months. In 2 months, holler at me.
Right.
You know what I mean? It depends on how much savings you have, right? It depends on how much support you have. And then you're going to decide if it's too soon or not. Like, I got hairdressers now back in my text saying, okay, I've got this mask, I've done my household this way, I'm taking clients in my house. I feel that. Which, I mean, what are you going to do?
Yeah, you definitely, as a small business owner, I represent small business owners. I do business consulting with entrepreneurs, et cetera. Like, you definitely want to weigh that space of need to get back to work. I think, though, that the two areas that I'm most concerned with are, one, again, I don't want a small business to open up, hire back their employees that are probably on unemployment, and then not have the demand because people aren't going. So it's like, oh, shoot, now I'm paying to have the lights on. I'm paying for people to be here, but are people going to show up? So even though you can, you may not want to yet, so you kind of have to wait and see, because I don't want to just be open and have an empty business open.
Right.
So that's part of it. And I think one of the things that's severely overlooked is this schools, childcare, et cetera issue. I have a dear friend who runs a nonprofit in Atlanta that has daycare centers. I have friends who have kids in LA. You can't have everybody go back to work who has children, and there's no place that the children, so like 6-year-olds are just at home, 9-year-olds are just at home. Like, there's a balance there that I don't feel like is being assessed as much. Because it really is. It's like, how can we control this? How can we contain it? How can we have a smart, phased in reopening, which I do think it's time for, but what are the considerations that you're really looking at so it makes sense?
Right.
And sometimes you're hearing people and it's like, that shit don't make sense. I don't know what they're talking about.
Right.
The workers are not a part of the
can you do?
conversation.
Yeah, the workers are not part of the conversation.
They're not a part of the consideration whatsoever. And even though I understand a lot of small businesses, they are their workers. They're struggling. They own this business. I understand a lot of small businesses still employ people. The people who are employed are not a part of the consideration. It's the consumers and the owners.
Right.
Yeah, because
And
it's like, I want to open a
tough.
business, but what if I'm scared to go back to work because my husband has diabetes? Or what if I'm scared to go back to work and I'm being...
It's okay to not want to die. Like,
right.
Yeah.
Like you said, it's the same health concerns as a student, going back to school. Like, I feel uncomfortable in this situation, so I'm not ready yet. But if you're saying, hey, my business is opening and I have to show up, that's a hard consideration to make. And to Tina's point, that's the scale starts sliding depending on where you are at. And unfortunately for a lot of us, the finances are always going to come into play depending on what your needs are and where your livelihood is at.
Yeah. I think a lot of it has to do with the misinformation, because some people who want to open these businesses, like, I'm not going to die, but you don't know that because all the information we have is bad from everybody.
Right.
Yeah,
and
so
also
we don't know
so
if it's safe or not. Yeah,
right.
so much uncertainty. It's like, okay, well, what are we really weighing and what are we really looking at, and is it controlled and contained, and how do we even trust that when you're telling us a week ago something else, or like Brooke said,
Right.
like one of you mentioned, like somebody will say something in the morning and it'll be something different the same day later in the afternoon.
Yeah, the
Like,
mask used to be a waste of time. Now they're mandatory.
That
And they
will
were
forever
important.
go down as one of the most upsetting, most dangerous
Listen.
blunders from
I mean,
So
or
any.
it's
the fact that you
where's
have
the
cycle
ones now?
or you have
forever.
leaders who are refusing to wear masks, but it's like, I don't know, when all of us were little, didn't we like hear this term, practice what you preach? So you're
Right.
not going to have confidence in anyone who's telling you, oh, you should do this, but I'm not going to do it.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Where does that work at?
Right. I mean,
OJ,
he
out of
wants to
Africa?
cause he wants to be the savior. However,
I
it
don't
makes
save
it look like
everybody
he's going to
People are
save.
dying all
Everybody's
around him.
dying. You're not saving.
Right.
He's killing.
You're not
Like,
saving everybody.
I'm surprised a lot more because it's a lot of his voters or a lot of his supporters who don't believe that this is real, and it's why aren't those people sick yet? They're
They are.
faces.
We're
They are
seeing stories
sick.
about them all
I
the
mean,
time.
I've
They
seen
are
it,
dying.
but it's like
Carriers.
I'm saying though,
Well,
like it would seem like it would be a bigger in mass, like everybody in the Midwest would be just dropping from how they're
I'm going to say something that's important that needs to be said that's not focused on, which actually bothers me on a daily basis. The infection rate, death rate, what is about 3%. Not that it is not a little number, but we don't focus at all in the media and how this is publicized. The publicist for COVID does not mention the recovery rate very often.
Right.
There's a lot of people who have been sick. I bet all of us have known people who were sick before they knew they were sick. I've had conversations with several people like, oh, I for sure had this. And I know 2 people personally. We had a conference, a retreat in January, came back. One of my colleagues, end of January, early February, super sick, had all of these symptoms. She was like, it hurt for me to go up and down the stairs. She was like, I'm chest, everything. She's like, I've never been this sick. Fast forward 3 weeks, I was like, oh, you had that shit. That's what you had, like, for sure, without a doubt. And then later she got tested for the antibodies and et cetera. But there's a lot of people, to your point, OJ, that haven't recovered, have mild symptoms. Don't just be mad at Idris because he's cute and he didn't get more sick. Like, you can't weigh it that way.
Right. And I agree that we need to know the recovery rate. So I can agree with you supporters, and it's not some bipartisan thing. Like, I think we do want to reopen and get back to normal. Help me, convince me.
Convince me and give me clear information so that I know. And you know, I get this idea of like 3% is little, but it's not little when you're talking about deaths. But at the same time, there's a lot of people who have recovered, more that have recovered than died. And we need to really look at, well, okay, what are the situations? How do those things work? How do we utilize that information to guide us in this reopening phases?
There's so much. OJ, out of Africa, what's going on?
A lot of brave. Okay.
No, keep going there. Sorry, it got quiet for a second, so I thought we were moving on. But
I was thinking, I was like,
we don't have to. We don't have to.
It's all good. It's all good.
So I mean, when you go to out of Africa, I was looking at the stats because, you know, the whole big, another distraction. Black people have it more. I don't know. Somebody
They're
said
definitely dying at a higher rate, though.
They're dying at a higher rate.
Yeah.
They don't have more, but they're dying
because of some other pre-existing, you know, it amplifies
like so
pre-existing.
But yeah, because guess what?
Yeah.
Everything impacts us more. You know, I'm dealing with, so I'm president of Langston Bar, which is the African-American lawyers in LA. And, you know, the 3rd years are graduating now. They just pushed the bar back from July to September, which has never happened in the history of the bar. And they were having finals remotely, and a lot of them raised, like, yes, all of the students are taking finals remotely. But there's a difference between me taking finals at home, at my parents' house with my stepmama and my cousins and blah, 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 versus John, who's at home and has a whole extra wing and quiet and space in a room to take his finals at home. You know, so all of those conditional things that Black and brown people deal with, of course, affect all of these things and how we are impacted.
Right. But understanding that those are the impacts, like Black people get sent home from the hospital until they're on their deathbed, but some white people I know have too. Like that's when I first heard about that.
Yeah.
So I just, some of it is the white
some
noise,
of it is
right? That you don't
but
want
it's access, it's resources, it's all of those things. And another unpopular opinion too is that there's a lot of young Black folks that just don't listen, and they out there and they having those parties in Chicago with thousands of people there.
I heard about an underground speakeasy in the Bronx. I was like, who's going to that?
I heard of
people in New York.
There was
in New York of all places.
2 underground parties in Oakland that got shut down with hundreds of kids there. Because Tina, I'm from the Bay too. So I followed their news, and it's very interesting that there is this segment of young Black folks outside of the preconditioned things that we deal with, that they just don't listen, and they don't have access, and they don't have the same resources, and they're going to be even more. I mean, we're grown and educated and doubtful about some of the information we're given. If you're young and
I did do a cherry picking.
Exactly.
And also, like, the president, obviously, like, this is a great example of, like, the president and the administration is not it's not the only leader. There are so many different leaders that you listen to. Different states have different leaders. Different mayors are saying different things. If your pastor says come to church, it's okay, and the president, who has been saying you're from a shithole country, says it's not okay, you're giving those weird, because you're going to listen to the person that you've trusted for this like, there's so many different reasons that people are looking to other people for information. You may trust your boss who's just trying to keep their business afloat. You may, you know what I mean, like, people there's so much different information, because a lot of it, the motivation isn't just keep you from getting this, because we know the only way to 100% keep you from getting this is to stay in your house. And the percentage of people who are 100% willing to and able to do that, because that means not even going to the grocery store. That's still a risk. We're taking small risks, even, and I'm not saying because we have to take small risks, throw it all out. I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying that, we know
you have to weigh it.
100% weight. Yeah, exactly.
And we have a really big country.
And we have
a lot of people here that you have to
3%
of
what,
331 million.
Yeah. That's a lot of people. 3% of that.
It's a lot of people. Yeah.
Oh, the fact for sure.
I love when we talk like population, so people love to put it on like percentage and it makes them feel better. But 100,000 people have died in 2 months. Stop it. It doesn't, like, what I mean?
That's not normal. Deal. That's not
and
just
we're still not 100% sure why all of them died.
A lot of people die from cancer. I mean, I'm on.
People die from the flu. People die from auto accidents.
They just don't have no kind of. But Z-Pack don't work on this, and that's the only.
Not
thing.
Yet. But how we don't know?
If Z-Pack worked on, I'd be at the beach right now. We'd have to move this.
What's going on out of Africa?
It's real short.
Z-Pack worked on this.
Burundi had a election today during all of this, right? And it's the first time in 58 years they're about to possibly have a different leader.
All right.
Yeah, they're the leader's stepping down, and it's like the first peaceful transition, or hopefully peaceful transition, in the last 58 years. There's 5 people running for president, though. 5. But at least the guy's been in charge. They had a vote in 2015 that everybody that was shrouded in controversy, and then, there were riots and people died and a lot of other things. But they're hoping that this happened maybe a day ago or yesterday, and they're hoping that it actually goes smoothly this time. But the main opposition, or the main guys, definitely stepping down. So
say that
hopefully the leader, the current leader, I can't say his name. He's stepping down. He's gone.
Okay.
So they're definitely getting new leadership, and let's pray for them that everything goes smoothly, because the last time they tried it, there was problems.
Okay.
Before we go, this is where I want you guys to.
Before we go, actually.
Yeah,
Since
for
you
sure.
guys are first, both from the Bay, I have a theory about Black women from the Bay. Just one question.
I'm
Can
nervous.
y'all play dominoes?
Of course. What?
Yes.
Yes, every Black woman
Wait.
from the Bay can play dominoes. And they're probably really good. And do y'all fake like y'all not good?
No.
Sometimes.
I
Okay,
talked
see,
shit the whole way.
see.
Like I was about to be like,
Fired
who's
up
on
with that
dominoes
now.
on this app? Y'all trying to play?
Yep, every Black woman I have ever met from the Bay knows how to play dominoes and is very good at dominoes.
That's so funny. But now that you say that, it's very accurate for everybody that I know.
I did teach my niece
Yeah.
at 6 to play dominoes.
Yeah,
She's
see,
still like, well,
Yeah.
see.
No,
Yeah, and you
half
guys,
from her purse.
when I was at law school, I went to Hastings, which is in San Francisco, and we have
Ah.
this cement block. It's not there any longer. Called the Beach, and on Thursdays we'd have beer on the beach, and they'd get these kegs, and white folks. And so the Black law students would play dominoes, and
Man.
we did not let the white students play with us. It was like a really big deal because it was so, well, who got time to teach people? We don't have time for that. Nobody has time for that. But when I tell you those games were like crazy, and when I meet somebody and I'm like, what do you mean you don't know how to play dominoes? And I have to ask them, like, what's your lineage? Where'd you grow up? Where'd you come from?
What kind of dominoes you play?
Well, if you don't play dominoes, do you play a different game? Like, are you playing bid whist? Because I don't play bid whist. Like, that's something else, So it is very like regional. Exactly. It's like very regional. Certain areas do certain things, and dominoes is definitely a Bay thing. We definitely play dominoes.
We do, and Dominicans. Loaded.
And Dominicans are heavy
and Dominicans. Well, I actually have a quick question before we go too. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Tina, I wanted to ask you because I'm in this entertainment space, and we were talking about it offline before we started the show. This idea of how we move forward in this tour business, and figuring out experiential experiences, or people watching. We were talking about the idea of pay-per-view concerts or IG concerts, those types of things. And I'd love your brief opinion on that because you are directly in that space.
I go back and forth daily, as we all do right now. But I'm really trying to focus on it not being the same, right? Like, I think that's how I have to start versus, okay, we're going to have these concerts with 6 feet of space apart, blah, 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 and the drive-ins. Like, tickets would cost $2,000 a car to make what we made before. So honestly, it's been a lot in the production space. Who can make the best live stream? What equipment can I get to stream from my roof? Literally, if that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
Somebody sent us. I'm producing. My partner and I, for the Roots, we're doing an Africa Day celebration.
Oh, awesome!
And so we have 24-hour DJ, and we are going to have pre-recorded performers. You can come. It's youtube.com/the Everybody can come, right? So,
that's the brilliance of this new phase. Like,
and it is.
They say, like, everybody can come. Like, everybody can't fit in a venue, but everybody can come online.
Right, but we're all at the same playing field right now. We might not have Budweiser money. We might not have certain things, but
we don't even need Budweiser money right now. Like,
Sion Kuti sent us his performance, and it is beautiful. And it's not the best, sound because you don't have a lot of the best sound. But his creativity in it is so dope. And I'm like, this is going to be a good time because everybody's playing field is going to be like this.
Yes.
Like, you don't have lights behind you. Now what you going to do? Now how dope are you?
And you don't have an audience to feed back.
You don't have any explosions going on.
Right.
Like, you got to really think you're good on your own. And that's going to be great. And then as long as we keep carriers out of certain countries, I think that we can go back and do it in other places.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
There's a lot of islands that are very, very
to
clean right now. There's a lot of islands that have low rates right now. Just like
the United States has more corona cases than
anyone.
It's absurd, and it's directly because of who's leading us into the fire.
But it's also because we have a lot of people, and we're we
And we have a
don't,
lot of
we
people
don't
that don't
mind.
listen.
We don't
Yeah.
mind.
We're not
Yeah.
unified in this. You know, that
Well, our
idea.
president called it a hoax for a really long time. And then also the
Mhm.
CDC said, don't wear masks. There's been a lot
Yes,
of
Well, it goes back to that
official people, the
misinformation.
it was
official
always
people.
going to be here, but it could have been, this could be a smaller
Oh, this could
issue
have been
here.
avoided. This
We
could
could
have
have,
been avoided.
like back in
I
December,
don't think it could
we
have
could
been
have
avoided.
made
Oh, I
decisions
do.
here.
I'm sure it could have.
Not,
I
I
think
don't
it
think
could have been
avoided, but I
avoided.
definitely
Oh, no,
think
it could have.
like it could
It
have
could have
been
been
not.
Or
avoided.
maybe
We
like
wouldn't be
it
number
could have been
one
avoided like over in
We
China.
we should
if we
not
took a
know.
look at
We
what
should
happened, what was
not be
happening in
stuck
China
in
and
our
acted.
houses. The one number
Right.
that I am, keen on is that actually more people died from H1N1 back in the few years ago than COVID, but we were not locked in our houses. So how you control it
Right.
and whether it can be controlled, and when you are not in a space where you have some sort of unified leadership, you can't have that. In these other countries, Italy, when the Italian prime minister says, get your ass at home, guess what? Everybody was like, okay.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
It
And
was,
South
it was
Korea
different.
too.
I heard of Belgium,
South
they had
Korea.
like notes. You could only come out for an hour. You had to have a note saying where you were going. But Belgium's as big as freaking Englewood. You know what I mean?
Yeah. They're
Right.
We've
smaller.
had as much.
They're smaller countries, but they have
Yeah.
certain level of. Again, I think the
It's the culture,
dividing
too.
line is the culture and the leadership.
Mhm.
Leadership.
Absolutely.
That matters. We should have.
It matters.
We had months before we acted here
Right.
to see
Right.
what was happening in Wuhan, China. That our leadership in this country should have started doing mitigation tactics before it was an issue here, because it was always going to be an issue here. But
Didn't
starting
have to be a big
early
one.
would have,
And controlling it.
this would have been a layup for Trump. Can you imagine? Like if he
Right.
would have said, I know you guys think, but look at what's happening all around us, and I protected
Right.
you.
Right.
No one believed me. And now he's
Right.
just gonna say that anyway while your uncle's dead.
Right.
Unfortunately, like, you
Right.
know what I mean? And
Yeah.
it's
Well, I think
Before we
it's important.
go-
I think it's important that we all understand this idea of like, now that we're here, to Tina's point, like we just have to shift. We have to pivot.
We
We
have
have to
to,
figure
yeah.
out that no matter what, I'd love that, example that you used, Tina. It's like post 9/11. Yeah, we're all going through security. You can't go through the gate, etc. And that was a hard transition, but for the most part, except for OJ, we don't think about it on a daily basis. Because now it's just kind of like the thing that you
Think
do.
about the things you need
Yeah,
to have to be ready.
but in our business, I think it's going to be a really, really big shift because of how film, TV, tours, entertainment is produced, and because we're also learning in this space how important content is. Because when we're all at home, that's what we're all seeking out. So that for me is the more pivotal balance,
Right.
because that's the space I'm in.
Right. And to your point, for example, South Africa went back to work as far as people in production, right? They were like, you got to come to work. So we got to put these TV shows and content out. Now, they've had a couple of people, they get tested every day when they come in. If then they get isolated once you find out you have it, but everybody's accepted that they're probably going to catch it. And then they build up their immune system to get through it. I'm not saying that's the best way to go about it, of course.
Right.
But since we're pivoting, what are you going to do to
I
keep
think, and I've had a
everything
lot of
going?
conversations with people on the film and TV side. I represent a lot of producers, production companies, writers, etc. This idea,
good. I have to come.
old school idea of a closed set is different idea than a safe set.
Right.
And so, yes, if you're shooting certain shows, you can isolate, have a closed, safe set, contained set, shoot the whole show, everybody goes home. You can't do that for This Is Us. You can't do this for like an Altered Carbon or an Ozark. But there are some shows you can do that for and say, hey, we're all going to fly down to Tyler Perry's studio. It's sanitized. We're going to be on one lot. There's housing there. Everybody is going to be in this cluster and knock this out and go home and shoot, a 10-day movie or a 15-day movie. So it is possible to do that. And I think that's the conversations I'm having are circling around how we do those things.
And I just, since we're on this, I like the idea. I've been trying to change the narrative of how we tour in Africa anyway, right? Yes. And it's always been about, we got to fill a stadium with 10,000 people and you got to get a bag and, all of those reasons. And now it's like, but you probably would come over here for 30 grand now, right?
And you scale it down, and you scale
And
it
you
down
scale
because
it down,
we're
and
already
everybody
moving
gets to play.
towards more experiential types of events anyway. So I'm in that vein. Like, I would rather pay a little more to see someone in an intimate setting than a little less to go to Dodger Stadium and be with all them people. I don't need all the people.
The Live Nation wants you to have all the festivals. Like, that's what it's two sides to that. People are like, we're going to have festivals. Don't trip. We're going to have festivals. They're coming back.
Yeah.
I'm like,
imagine.
Are they?
They're going to be online festivals. They're going to be virtual festivals. They're going to be Africa Day festivals.
Right.
Where you have all these artists someplace. I was saying earlier, like, Beyonce can be in the Apollo empty and they shoot it and we all pay to watch it, or on somebody's rooftop or in somebody's field or whatever. But I think that's going to be the last of the last.
Last of the last.
Of everybody being in something.
Unless there's a vaccine, right?
Right.
So
At least we're talking
club,
like for the next 2 years. Right.
Yeah.
We're talking clubs will come back before concerts.
Oh, strip clubs
probably open now.
Did you hear about this strip? OJ.
I heard about a drive-through strip club.
I heard about the drive-through strip club. I knew OJ was on that. OJ, you heard about the drive-by strip too already. I loved it. I was like, this is entrepreneurship at a whole other level, because they got with the restaurant, they got with the strippers, they got with an events company. They set up a tent. You drive by, the girls are dancing in there.
Boom,
boom. The money, then you get your food, you keep it moving. I was
Where's this at?
I think it's in Oregon.
Oh, they have
nothing but
Oregon.
Strip
clubs in Oregon.
I love this strip club.
They have what?
Oh no! Listen, they have like the most strip clubs per capita in America, and like in one city.
Yeah.
And then
why
a lot
is
of the
this a
strippers
fact that you have just ready to go?
Because I've been there, and like I had a friend who wanted to go to Oregon because there were so many strip clubs. He was like,
I'm a tour manager. We have off time. What do you do? You can't just go to the club or the bar all the time. You were like, wonder who's got some good strip. Let's go here.
Turns out Oregon has all of them.
I've spent a whole day sitting in a strip club in Oregon.
Wow!
Yeah, there's one with like a buffet. They got they say they got like some of the best steak ever at this strip club in Portland.
Favorite strip club, Johannesburg. They had like a whole buffet, $50 extra. They had sushi.
I'm old school. I know that there's definitely some strip clubs that have like the best chicken wings that you could ever have.
The food is the best.
Sometimes you get great food.
We actually had a competition on tour, like which strip club in Atlanta has the best wings. This is how bored you get on tour. You're like,
but
let's hire a bunch of
drop it off. Also important questions. That's also important information to have.
And the answers,
or do we just have nothing to do?
Where can everybody find you on social media, both of you, and then also any projects you have upcoming? Can you touch back on the Roots project as well, and just let everybody know what's coming up, what's going on, where to find you? This has been a great conversation.
Sure. Thank you for having me. This has been really fun and interesting, and thank you for having different topics to talk about other than what are we going to do? You can reach me at Tina Farris Tours on Instagram, Facebook, everything. YouTube, I think I have a YouTube. But I have been producing The Bridge, which is a conversation in the diaspora. It's about exchanging our resources and just bringing people who may not know, like Americans, what our African counterparts are doing and vice versa. We've had 3 episodes so far. The first one was film and television composers. So I had Sir Paul Gladstone Reed, who hailed from the UK via Jamaica, and a gentleman from South Africa who just worked on Queen Sono. The next episode we did was comedy. So I had like Chris Spencer and Eddie Kadi and Loisa Madinga. And they interacted. And then last week we did media executives. So we had Tuma Basa and Ebro, a fantastic lady named Tools out of Nigeria, and DJ Edu from the UK. And this week we're doing lyricism. We're gonna show it, or it premieres on Monday, Africa Day, that the Roots are celebrating on our YouTube channel and also Instagram Live. They're 24-hour DJs and performances from across the continent. We're trying to represent as many as possible. So yeah, tune in. That's what we're doing. We're just out here.
How did I not know about this? What am I doing?
Because we just
right up your
came up with
alley.
it.
Put it together.
We're doing it right now.
Things move quickly during the coronavirus. Like,
Things
you're like,
move
what can
very
we put
fast
together?
during
We
the
put that
virus, so-
together. It's
What
happening
happens
on
when you don't log
Thursday.
on to
Okay,
Twitter
it's
every
done.
Right. Literally
That's
doing it
mental
right
health
now.
care. That's mental health care. I'm going to make sure and follow you, Tina. Again, thank you guys for having me. I really enjoyed the conversation. I can be found everywhere at Shaw Esquire, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. I do not have a YouTube page. I do not have a TikTok. I do not have a Snapchat. I'm a grown up. I mean, excuse me, if you're going to have a TikTok, that's fine. I'm just saying, I don't have one.
Jason
I'm not
Derulo
gonna
may
share one.
drag me on over to TikTok. I have been dying laughing. I may.
Well,
You're doing dances.
Do you?
You're doing dances.
Got the Chinese
Just
government
to
in
watch.
your phone.
I just want
You're
to
like
watch.
this.
I just want to watch.
oh,
You've been cracking me up.
can be,
I just
you can be,
And the Chinese
be a
government is
voyeur.
watching you right back.
Yeah, exactly. Brooke wants to be a TikTok voyeur. That's fine.
That's funny.
I just don't want to see you, posting no dances. That's all.
On the next episode, adults who post TikTok dances.
Oh Lord, I can. If we have a list of the 3 things that annoy me the most during coronavirus, that's a whole other
The
episode.
kids are like, we want our platform back. We left Instagram and Snapchat because of this.
Exactly. They keep leaving
funny.
because we
Us on
keep
Facebook,
coming,
so
right?
It's their turn. Exactly.
Yeah.
It's their turn.
But honestly,
When all my
somebody
aunties
put
join
me.
Facebook,
Yeah, then you
it's
left.
to us. It's their turn.
Yeah, it's generational. It goes.
They'll do it too.
And yeah, I don't have any specific projects coming up. I'm always working on things and speaking on panels and et cetera about entertainment, media, technology space. So if you follow me, you'll hear about what I'm doing next.
Right.
This is
Awesome.
great. This has been great. Thank you both for being here.
Thank
This is
you
the
so
first
much
time,
for
and
having
OJ,
me.
we were saying this is the first time we've done a show where neither of us knew either of the guests
Right.
before asking them to come on the show. And so I'm glad you all said yes. And this has been a great conversation. We've got to have
Yeah,
you both
thank you
back
so much.
also, for sure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you guys.
Good to meet
Thank
you.
you for
It's been great.
listening to Controlling Our Narrative. Make sure to subscribe, like, try your hardest to find OJ hidden on social medias. Try your hardest. It's a bit of a hunt.
Like a Where's Waldo?
By design.
Where's OJ?
But, where is OJ? Exactly.
And the cut.
Yeah.
You can find us on also the conpodcast.net. Subscribe from there.
And share it with your friends, because that's really how this happens, right?